I don't know if you've heard us talk about it on the radio before with Will or Jeff or some of the other folks. A few years ago, we got together. There's a handful of us that got together at a restaurant, kind of doing some back of the cocktail napkin, figuring about what we thought might be going on with the world, looking at the economy, looking at the food situation. And we were thinking that there had to be a way to prepare for several possible eventualities. I think we first kind of got the idea after the 2008 stock market crash. Wasn't that the case, Will? Was that when we first started talking about it? Yeah, I'm trying to get back on the timing aspect of it. And we understood that so often government leaders around here tended to kind of look at things like, well, you know, we've had problems in Jackson County before, let's just hang on, and it'll always come back and business as usual. And we thought we had to be a little more proactive than that. And we're thinking, well, geez, you know, what can we do? What are some priorities here? So we started talking about food security and economic self-sufficiency, having a bit more control of our destiny here in the Rogue Valley, especially when you consider that we are a huge recipient of transfer payments from the federal government. And I don't know about you, but how long do you think those transfer payments will continue to Jackson County? Long time, right? Forever and ever, amen, right? And so we formed Jackson County Local Action Coalition, and it grew and grew, and we've had some events like, you know, the Joel Salatin event of last year, which was a lot of fun. And so here we are tonight, wanted to kind of rebirth this. It's kind of the renewal of the Jackson County Local Action Coalition, but also the launching of Project Rogue Valley. And we're hoping to have you become a member of this tonight to help fund the continuing levels. And we have a number of different levels of the memberships. $10 memberships, $35 memberships, $1,000 membership, and frankly, if you give $100,000, they will let you do whatever you want. I haven't run that past the committee, but again, all we're asking is that if we resonate, what we're doing tonight resonates with you, if you could join at the highest level that's comfortable for you. And we expect you might want to know more about Project Rogue Valley before you join. We certainly understand that. And just head over to the membership table at the very back to sign up there. And the reason why I think you'd like to become a member is that, especially at 820, you become an instant citizen of Project Rogue Valley, and you get to vote. You get to vote on the revised JCLAC bylaws. And you can also find over at the table, we have a few copies of that. We'll have a presentation to summarize this in a little while in order to launch Project Rogue Valley. And that's why we'd really like you to join tonight. I'm going to join. I'm signing up my family members too, and you all get to vote. And by the way, if you don't have the money tonight, that's okay. We're going to have you vote on kind of an honor system. You can vote as long as you just say that you'll send the money here in the next few days to help fund the activities. But the main thing is that we want you in the fold, if at all possible. We're going to get things rolling. We're going to try to make this move really fast as possible. Sure, we'll have questions and answers sessions and all sorts of speakers tonight. First on tonight, wanted to welcome our host and have our host kind of welcome everybody here. Phil Van Buskirk, who's the director of the OSU Research and Extension Center here in Jackson County. Phil, come on up. Thank you. I want to welcome you all here tonight, and like you, we're here to learn about the Project Rogue Valley. But how many people know that or have had some experience working with the center here at all, either through the extension or research? So a few of you know about us. So for those that don't know anything about our center, I did bring some annual reports and a little bit of information over on the counter here about our center, about the research projects that we work here in the community, helping our farmers and ranchers solve problems, implement new technology, as well as trying to help them stay sustainable and competitive in a world market today. And then we also have our extension faculty that also address educational components within the community, helping to extend the information from the university through non-educational type
venues like workshops, one-day events, 1-2 hour educational components. So many of the programs that we have are things like forestry, commercial agriculture, small farms, which we'll hear a little bit more about tonight, family community health, and a few others. So for those of you that would like to learn a little bit more about our organization, help yourself to one of the annual reports with information. Again, welcome.
Thanks very much. I don't know even where we start with Will. I mean, none of us would be here if it hadn't been Will's idea to say, hey, I have a germ of an idea about Jackson County Local Action Coalition, so here we are. He's going to talk about this in a few minutes and give you a bit of the history of JCLAC, some of the context, and what you can expect to hear tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, Will Russia.
Thank you, Will. Thank you, Mr. Van Busker, very much. Yeah, we had a meeting like this, similar to this at least, in July of '09. And it had a lot of promise at the time. And I really feel like we didn't fulfill that promise. But the good news is it's not over. And we have another opportunity. So I'm gratified and humbled that a lot of you have chosen to come out tonight. Some of you came out 2 years ago, perhaps, and are giving us another try. Because we didn't lose the vision, but admittedly, I think we failed to build a movement. And that was really our goal. And I think, frankly, some of the fresh energy that they have joined with us, new compatriots, may be just enough. But some of the basic principles that motivated us then haven't changed. One of the things that I stated in the little talk I gave back then was that we need to reduce our dependence on the central government. You know, we've allowed the federal government to usurp, frankly, a lot of power, a lot of functions, increasingly so. And this, I mean, at a minimum, this undermines, I think, the dignity of most people, people throughout the country. But the increasing dependence on the state, erodes and in the end actually can steal our freedom, our very liberty. So this is something that motivated us. We must become less dependent on Washington, therefore more self-reliant. Let's put it in the positive sense. And that's certainly one of the motivators. And the other thing that was a hallmark, and somewhat unique, was that we didn't want to be part of some other organization, an auxiliary to this or that political party. There were many who helped form JCLAC originally that saw themselves perhaps as coming out of the more Republican Party. And some of the people left us, some of our early meetings before the July meeting, in disappointment that we weren't going to approach things from that perspective. But we knew that that wasn't the answer. Not for us. It might be the answer for them, and it might be a way to solve certain problems. But we felt that that was indeed, in a sense, part of the problem. So we adopted a term called transpartisanship. And even though it sounds a little bit jargonish, it works really, for us anyway, because it really, instead of being bipartisan, it means beyond partisanship. Cut across, to use actually maybe a more literal meaning of the word, of the preface trans. But I really think we don't have time for anything else than that. We must set aside the kind of differences that have separated us often in the past. It doesn't mean we give up or abandon the values on a variety of issues that have motivated us and still might motivate us, in other particular arenas or other issues or commitments. But I think, a lot of us who 2 years ago helped start JCLAC became convinced that a lot of the rigid stereotypes that we had about the other side may not be all that well founded and possibly just simply unjust. And as time has passed, I've certainly become more convinced that that's true. The revived JCLAC certainly is an expression of that. A little bit of history there. We did a series of events that were suggestive of the potential for our vision, but they didn't really build a broader movement. I think the best example is the Joel Salatin event that we had in February of 2010. And if anybody was not there and is curious about really the kind of power that this, if you will, transpartisan idea around certain key issues can have, I would suggest you get a copy of the video, which Mr. Jackson, Bill Jackson, is doing the taping tonight, made at that time. And it's, you know, Bill had no control over the lighting, by the way, a little disclaimer. He was stuck with the lighting as it was presented to him that evening, but he rendered a historical document that I frankly think is reasonably valuable, and I recommend it. But anyway, we did a series of these events, but we didn't build anything sustained. And, you know, another sort of history. At our first meeting in July of '09, I was approached by Mr. Jeff Golden, whom I'd known just at a distance, just because of his involvement in the community over the years. And he was very, you know, kind of complimentary about, you know, what we seemed to represent, and I took that respectfully. But, you know, Jeff was still sort of, you know, pigeonholed for me, and I have to admit, you know, the other side and all that. But he, you know, we talked a few more times, and I was, you know, I could see that there was common ground, and it wasn't long before I felt like, you know, this is a guy I can do business with. How else to put it? I mean, we're going to have a business relationship in a formal sense. But I just felt like, so as this progressed, I felt encouraged. And then during the campaign, I was, for county commissioner, I was additionally surprised to find that I have a lot more agreement with that guy than the other guy. So, you know, and then after the election was over, you know, I thought that, you know, some of the ideas that Jeff had represented in his campaign really were compelling, and we just met for lunch and started talking, and out of that came a surprising, to me at least, suggestion that Jeff and some of the people that had been committed to his cause, if you will, join JCLAC. And that was a game changer in a lot of ways, because it did represent that transpartisan thing. Because we really could never overcome that, you know, left-right binary sort of thing exactly, because most of the people that formed JCLAC and that stayed with it through that time came more or less from that. We did have a few Ashland strays that were in our early meetings and committed and all, but, you know, we got to get past that. I mean, I've said to people who object to some of this sort of thing, I said, look, if you're in a neighborhood of 15 or 20 homes, I used this on the radio, forgive me this morning, but if you're in a neighborhood of 15 or 20 homes and there's a fire coming down over the ridge, you know, you're not sitting there saying, well, he voted for a bomb. You know, I'm not going to help him. I mean, that's absurd. You know, I mean, it's absurd on its face. And to some extent, I don't want to be quite that dramatic, you know, or that's a hyperbole, of course, but there's a sense in which that's where we are. You know, in the whole country for that matter, but we have to do this kind of thing as communities, because the solution isn't in Washington. It's obviously somewhere else. It's here among ourselves. And so we need to set aside those things. Sure, we might disagree about something. And if Jeff, the one thing, Jeff, you're not a Yankees fan, are you? Okay, that's okay. That was really the one thing I had to clarify before we went any further, because that's to me non-negotiable. No Yankee, no. I'm sorry. I don't mean to make mock of it, but it's tough to take. So anyway, we're going to have a number of quick presentations. I think, Bill, the next thing is that each one who's been involved in this interim committee. Now, the one thing I will say that I felt like a real fidelity. I had to be faithful when we started to revive JCLAC, because it was fairly dormant after the county commissioner race when we had and I begged a few people that had been in the early phase of this to come back and at least participate in the revival, so that we could be faithful to some of the principles that originally grounded the beginning of the organization. Because I didn't want anyone who might have been persuaded that we were right in the past to think that somehow it had been co-opted by these folks from Ashland. You know, we just didn't want to lend itself to that, any of that sort of rousing. So Lynn Barton was one of the people that, and Larry Friend and others came back, in addition to Bill and Chaz Brown, who's not here tonight. And Mike Krebs was involved. So I just really implored some of them who were involved. And Lynn has gone on to other things, and she's extremely busy, but she's been a great benefit just to keep us focused. It's been a great blessing. So anyway, a few people are going to just tell you why they're, you know, committed to this.
Well, let's see. I've lived here for 20 years. I love this community. I love this valley. I have 2 children. They're 13 and 16. I would love for them to have the opportunity to choose to stay in the valley rather than have to leave it to find work. And so when Will called me back in 2009, I was still walking around kind of shell-shocked. The stock market had crashed, the economy had gone into a recession. A lot of my friends' husbands were out of work. Most of us had significant losses in our life savings. And I was thinking, do we just have to take this? Do we just have to roll over and let it happen? But I didn't know what to do. So when Will called and said, I'm thinking about something, I want you to just come hear about it. And when he talked to me about the notion that we really don't have a lot of control over what happens in Washington, D.C., but we can do a lot locally, working with our neighbors. And let's focus on building this community economically right here. And then when he also brought in the idea, we can't do this just with, you know, the conservative friends that we know. We need to expand this into our neighbors to the south and really make it a full countywide effort. And I was so inspired by that, not only because I know it'll be effective, but because I think it's really important for us to build trust and get to know each other and break down some of these old walls. It's not very effective to just look down our noses at each other from either end of the valley and nothing gets done. And I'm just so delighted to see all of you here. I'm excited about what's happening with Jeff Holden, and I just really encourage all of you to sign on with us and let's get to work helping build our community. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Larry Friend, and Lynn's a little bit more eloquent than I am up here, so I'm just going to use the basics of it. I'm sorry?
You're more handsome.
Oh, thank you. Anyway, I've been married 35 years. 29 of those have been in the Rogue Valley. My wife and I truly call this home. We have 4 grown kids and 5 grandkids. And the reason I got involved with JCLAC was because I respected the people that started the whole conversation. Like Lynn said, we were invited to a luncheon at a local restaurant. A lot of these people, I didn't know who they were. Kind of scary at first. I had to ask them their names and what they were there and what they were representing because I didn't know quite where they were coming from. But I got to know them and really grew strong together. And from there, like Will was talking about, where JCLAC made some advancements, and then we kind of paused for a while, and now we've regrouped with some truly great people from the south end of the valley, and they are good to work with. I can tell you that right now. So I want to encourage you to become a member and join in with us in this grand plan for Project Rogue Valley.
Hi, I'm Michael Krebs, probably the youngest member of this organization. I have 4 kids myself, and out of a need for me to prepare and for my family, I felt that this was a great avenue. A show of hands, who was here at the Joel Southland event last year? For a number of you. I hope that event proved to you and to me that yes, transpartisan nature, bringing together people from all walks. We had over 650 people there. And to have that kind of a showing and to have that kind of an entertaining evening was very special for me. I'm very excited to see our relationship with Mr. Golden. He's done nothing but impress us, especially during the campaign. He speaks the same language, and that's why we're here. We're glad you're here. Hope you learn and live it as much as we do. Thank you.
I'm Rich Whitley. I'm from the other end of the valley. And really glad to be here and be part of this. I love this place. I lived here in the late 70s through the mid 80s. And from the day I drove out of this valley going north, I said I was coming back. And so about 7 years ago, I got to come back. This is a beautiful place. We have tremendous natural resources, tremendous agricultural resources, and most importantly, great human resources. And we need to pull all that together and build the future that we really want for this valley here locally. You know, we always tend to, when we're in conflict, to look to government or somebody up here, up above us, a higher level out of the valley for solutions, you know. And if we work together, and then of course they're willing to solve the problem for you. So let's work together and keep it local, create the jobs, take care of our resources, our agricultural communities, and work together on this. It's a beautiful place, and let's keep it that way. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Lynn Blanche. So between the two Lynns, we've got the valley covered. I'm from the South End. The Rogue Valley is an incredibly beautiful place to live. 13 years ago, I moved my family here very intentionally, researching Bellingham down into Southern California for the quality of life that I could sense. The diversity of the scenic beauty, the recreation yards, the local culture, the farming, and the people, the diversity of the people who speak the human resources as rich just to contribute to that quality of life. So my guess is that perhaps among other things, quality of life is something that all of you value as well, and that's something that brought you here. And because you're here, you must, I'm guessing, again, you must care to protect and preserve it. So my sense is we all have different experiences, opinions, and points of view, and I think all of them are necessary and important to this local project. It's going to take us all to build this resilient local economy from the ground up. And in the end, we'll have a strong community. So I look forward to the sharing and the learning, especially the learning, of everything we can accomplish, everything we can accomplish for the sake of this place we call home. And as you've heard, I think there's no better time than now to get started. So welcome, and please join us.
And a couple of thoughts from me. I've been here since '91, except for a couple of years in Fargo. I try not to count those. It's nice to live in an area where the weather doesn't routinely kill people, so I'm okay with that. I tend to be, as you know, swinging more to the right, libertarian side of the political wings of conspiracy, as it were. And there are many things that politics is good for. And my experience with JCLAC tells me that there are many things that politics is not good for. And I have to tell you, when it comes to a lot of the problems which plague the Rogue Valley, politics, I think, in many cases has gotten in the way. And that's why I have been very proud to be part of this, and I'm hoping that you'll join us tonight also. We're going to continue on with our presentations tonight, because sure, this Jackson County Local Action Coalition Project Rogue Valley, it's not just us though, because we're not just starting from scratch here. There are so many other groups that have simpatico with various aspects of JCLAC's vision. And there's a whole bunch going on. We're going to give a few samples here for you. In fact, everybody that's going to be part of the speakers just kind of come up front here. We'll have to speak on the microphone. First off, from Thrive, a few words from Wendy Seporin. Wendy?
Hi, everyone. Again, my name is Wendy Sephorn, and I'm the Executive Director of a nonprofit organization here in Jackson, Josephine County. This is called Thrive, the Rogue Initiative for a Vital Economy. And our mission is to create a more sustainable economy here in the Rogue Valley by helping customers, helping you, the community, connect with locally owned businesses. And we've been doing that since 2004, helping food businesses connect with one another. We have an annual Food Connection Conference to help farmers and ranchers find buyers for their product, chefs and retailers. We also annually publish the Rogue Flavor Guidebook. It's a guide to local food products, and that latest version is coming out just later this month. It's also available online at buylocalrogue.org. So we have about 160 business members that are committed to this valley. Most of those are food businesses, and we also run an online farmers market for people that can't get to the farmers markets during the working hours. And last year, in collaboration with a lot of other organizations, one of which is OSU Extension Small Farms Program here, we helped launch the Farmer Incubator, which is a comprehensive and progressive series of both education and experiential learning for new farmers to get on their feet. And our role in that is to help them find new markets, new customers. And we also have a farm to food bank subsidy program as well, which you'll hear from Phil Gates, who's one of our community partners. So we are a very small nonprofit. We have just about 2 staff people, I guess we'll say, and I left some information in the back of the room. We could use your support. We always need volunteers for our programs and events. Eat Local Week is a great time in September where we have to really get the message out about the importance of eating locally grown foods for economically and for your health. So I was told I only had 2 minutes, so it's my time up. We have a lot of other interest in terms of creating mechanisms that will allow people to invest in the local economy as well.
You're not small, you're tightly focused, lean, efficient. There we go. She did mention the OSU Extension Services Small Farm Program. We have the director of that right now, Maud Powell, who's next to tell us about that
program. Thank you. We try to be a little egalitarian in our programs. There are 4 of us, and I'm not actually the director. I'm just one of the 4 staff people. But thank you. I enjoyed that. Anyway, I'm Maud Powell, and I work here at Extension. I'm really excited to see all these new faces. This is an extraordinary center, and I hope you'll get to know us better if you haven't explored some of our opportunities here. The Small Farms Program, we've been in existence since 2006. We serve primarily 3 major groups. We work with small acreage landowners. We help them with pasture management, irrigation, weed management. And then we work with commercial producers that are already up and running and might need help with learning to create a value-added product, to look into more niche markets. We held a class recently on organic pesticides to give commercial, organically certified growers opportunities for other pesticides that they could use under the certification. And then, as Wendy mentioned, we work a lot with new growers. We're seeing this groundswell of interest in producing local food. So we have lots of young people, people like Lucas, who's in the audience. He's a new farmer in the Applegate. He's his first year in production. And then we also have people that are in their second careers. They're often retiring. They're buying their little 20 or 30 acre dream parcel. They want to create some kind of income from it, so they come to us. So we see ourselves as kind of the go-to resource for small farms in the valley. A couple of our programs that we're really excited about, we have a League of Women Farmers. This is for our commercial producers, and we meet monthly for potlucks and farm tours and educational classes and film showings. We've been up and running for about 3.5 years. We have about 40 women that regularly attend our meetings. It's fantastic. The men are all jealous. And then another program that we just started this year we got funding for is our 1 acre farm, teaching farm, which is right here at the center We have 9 new farmers. They all have small plots that they're working away from the center, but then they're here taking classes, they're doing skill building sessions, and then they're working with our farm manager 2 hours a week. So they're getting a lot of hands-on experience, as well as more theoretical and academic information as well. So I did put we have an email list. If you'd like to get on it to learn more about our programs, please sign up. And thank you all for coming. This is very exciting.
Like I said, we're hoping to enhance a lot of the missions of these various groups because we didn't start these programs, we just want to help out. And I'll tell you, Philip Gates and the folks over at Access Incorporated have done just yeoman's work here in the Valley. Philip, why don't you come up and talk to me here.
Good evening. Yeah, I'm Philip Gates. I'm the director of Access Food Share, the program that serves hungry people in the Valley here. It's my 19th and a half year this year. And I've been, well, thank you. I feel a little bit as though I failed a little bit because when I started to work, I wanted to make sure to work myself out of a job. That hasn't happened. The hunger situation in the Valley has grown gradually more difficult. The food security is very, very difficult in the area. We served, when I first started 19 years ago, about 12,000 food boxes in Jackson County. Last year we served over 40,000 food boxes. A huge increase. And you can imagine the amount of food that takes, in order to be able to provide that food. And each food box is a 5-day supply of food for all members of the family. That means to say that right now we're providing about 53,000 pounds of food every single week to low-income people who are hungry across the valley. And we do that through a network of 23 pantries. And through the years, as we've been having to respond to the increased needs, and you're probably aware that once upon a time, and now once again, we were one of the worst states in the nation as far as hunger is concerned. In the year 2000, we were actually the worst state in the nation. And then we actually did something, we did better. We got people on food stamps, we got people help in other ways, and we've dropped to number 17. But we're back to number 3 again. So we're struggling because of the economy, because of people not being able to pay for their basic needs. And so that's why we're here, to be able to do that. We do that through partnerships. We partner with a statewide food bank called the Oregon Food Bank. We bring food in from all parts, including USDA commodity foods. We bring that in, but we also have partnerships through the Oregon Food Bank, national and statewide donors as well. We've grown our supporters here locally with local retailers, with local farms, with local orchardists, such that we have now, as I said, providing 53,000 pounds every single week. Those partnerships, to me, are important. But what I keep seeing is that need keeps on increasing every single year. This last year, 8% more people came to the food banks again. And the answer isn't obviously in providing more and more food. The answer is helping people in other ways as well. So in other ways, we help people with nutrition education. We partner with OSU Extension here. They have nutrition education volunteers. We also partner with other organizations as well to bring food tasting to the pantries. We have to be able to change the nutritional quality of people's diets. We have an obesity problem, we have a malnutrition problem, both in Jackson County, statewide, and across the nation as well. So we're working to try and bring more nutrition, more nutritional needs into the food banks. We started last year 5 what we call food share gardens. These are donated pieces of land by individuals in the community who've donated also the water. They're 1/4 of an acre in size. They're high productivity drip irrigation projects. They're producing about 8,000 to 9,000 pounds with each project. This year we expect to produce about 50,000 to 60,000 pounds of organic produce to be able to go into the system. I believe that we really need to be able to focus on sustainable resources. We can't rely on the resources we've been used to over the years. Over the last 3 years, we've had more food recalls than I can remember in my previous 16 years. So the food safety element, to me, is a real problem. If we can kind of keep that kind of resource within our valley, we have at least the opportunity to talk to our local farmers and to be able to know where that food came from. So that's the direction that we're moving in. We're looking again at other resources in continuing to partnership here at the Extension Service. They donated a 1 acre of land that produced over 20,000 pounds of organic produce last year. So lots of partnerships are going on. If you want to participate in some way, you can. We also have a project called Plant a Row for the Hungry. So if you're a gardener and you have extra seeds or extra plants and you have extra space, you can plant some extra product this year, and when it's ready, give us a call and we'll direct you to a local food pantry that's closest to where you live. So you can participate in a lot of different ways. Please help us to be able to continue to feed people across the valley. Thanks.
Now, Philip had just mentioned he was hoping to work himself on the job, right? In a nice way, correct? Because things worked out so well. One of the ways you do that, though, is by creating more employment, better economy, and one of the aspects of this is that you need investment capital. Our next guest to talk more about this is Marilee Miller. She's with the Rogue Resiliency Fund. Marilee.
Thank you. I'm representing the Rogue Resiliency Fund, who is a group of people intending to bring together local investors and local community-based entrepreneurs. Our mission is to serve as a catalyst and a resource for both investors and businesses that serve the whole community. I'm not a business person. I don't have a lot of money. Well, I'm here. You got the message through all the people who are talking. These times are very different. What we need to do is rebuild locally for the common good. The Rogue Resiliency Fund has taken its first fledgling steps by funding microloans, and the first one is repaying the investment already. We're working very hard to identify worthwhile projects which support the Rogue Valley community, particularly in the areas of food, health, transportation, and energy. We have a number of projects we're currently studying, and we're open to anyone else's great ideas. As local investors relocalize their capital, we will be matching and informing them about these worthwhile projects that we're researching. If you might be interested in finding out more about this, we're going to be holding a whole bunch of local coffees and teas to talk about it. I'll pass around a list. And if you want to know about a coffee that's going to be held in your area, we will then notify you. The other option is to get on the JCLAC website, and then there's a Rogue Resiliency page, and you can sign up there and ask for additional information. I'd like to just add one or two things about what you've heard so far tonight. You can hear the common threads, but one of the issues I think that is so important is that all of these projects are insightful with an S. A change from having everything being insightful with a C. They're thoughtful. They're thoughtful. They're addressing real needs and empowering you and me. It's collaborative. People are sharing information with each other, returning calls. And it is inclusive. Not from any one town and not from any one perspective. This is by, for, and from the people of the valley. One other thing I want to mention, we have with us Susan Davis Mora and Walter Mora, who this weekend, will be doing a workshop looking to develop with representatives across the county a whole systems network. They have created and are catalyzing this in more than 20 other locales in the nation. And they have effectively implemented this with a small, gorgeous community with very intelligent people. Not us, but maybe we'll be next. Where conflict has disappeared and people are working together. So I invite you all to hear them speak about it Thursday evening, 3 days from tonight, at the Grove Community College Higher Education Center, 101 South Bartlett, in Medford, at 7:30. We're all working hard to walk our talk. I hope you'll join us.
Yeah, let's see, food, farming, investment capital. Oh yeah, how about a method of exchange? Are there other ways of doing it besides the sainted Federal Reserve note that we are learning more about all the time? To tell you more about the Rogue Trade Exchange, Don McCoy.
Isn't it exciting to see people trying to do something rather than watch something happen? So we're just making things happen here. The Rogue Trade Exchange, it's about money, and it's about preserving money. It's about saving it and keeping it in your pocket and using more of it to pay your bills and run your lives. Well, how do you do that in this world today? It's by implementing a complementary currency, something that works alongside of the cash dollar, that small businesses, medium-sized corporations, employees, individuals, and the public can all begin to utilize as time goes on amongst themselves to create more loyalty amongst ourselves as business owners, and remember each other in these transactions. And it also sets certain businesses apart from their competition. So the rogue currency, or the rogue medium of exchange, becomes a credit clearinghouse with lines of credit available to the businesses. And many of you know this isn't a new concept. Whether you've got a strong economy, a weak economy, or a stagnant economy, you can have another alternative currencies. Other nations have experienced alternative monies for many, many decades, hundreds of years. And our country has always had a stable money. Well, that may very well be going away someday. We're not so sure how stable it is. In the interim, while we're struggling to preserve our cash flow, let's create another medium of exchange for our local economy, our local community. And let's utilize that amongst ourselves to get products and services. It's not a direct barter deal. It's more like having a money to spend with each other. So from accountants to zoos, we can have from shoelaces to real estate. We can have all kinds of trades and trading transactions going on. 10 plus years I ran the Southern Oregon Trade Association here. And in less than 5 years, it became in the top 20 of trade exchanges in the United States, turning nearly 500,000 trade dollars a month in trading activity right here in a region of Southern Oregon and Northern California. So we can create that again. Just proud to be part of it, proud to be working with great people like Bill Chambliss, who listened to me on Bill Meyer's radio show here a few months ago, in fact last summer, and Chaz Brown, who stepped up to the plate, invited me into the circle, and Will Reichman, and recognizing and catching the vision of that we do need to have another alternative currency. It will make a difference in our lives. And for those of you that know somebody, yourselves included, that would like to take a look and apply to see if it would work for you in your business, we have a special paper that you can fill out and put your email address on there. We'll contact you, and of course you're welcome to go to the website, which is linked to Project Rogue Valley, and it's called the Rogue Trade Exchange, or roguetradeexchange.com. And so if you want to pass that around, Michelle, here she is, right here. So for those of you that know of somebody too, just go ahead and hook up, and we'll send you the link, send you the information if you like. And again, it's great to see people making things happen rather than just sitting around watching it happen. Okay, thank you.
And the next organization intrigues me because I have visions of Dave Schott sitting down breaking bread with Dominic De La Sala. And it's kind of a funny thought in and of itself, isn't it? But anyway, George McKinley is here to talk more about the Small Diameter Log Collaborative. George, come on up.
My name is George McKinley, and I head up the Southern Oregon Small Diameter Collaborative. The Collaborative is a nonprofit group with a very diverse board. It's true. working to improve and expand active management on federal forests in Southwest Oregon. We work primarily with the Medford District of BLM and the Rogue-Siskiyou National Forest. The mission of the Small Diameter Collaborative is to remove small trees from dense forests in order to improve forest health, reduce the risk of catastrophic wildfire to forests and communities, and strengthen the contribution of workers and wood products manufacturing to community well-being. It's a daunting task. We've accomplished that by trying to come up with shared understandings and guidelines, principles to help us inform ourselves about the different factors that weigh into promoting expanded forest management. We've also done quite a bit of landscape assessment work to help us understand where we would start managing the forest, if we were going to go out there and go to the most important areas first to accomplish those goals. One of the things I like to say about collaboration is that I think the strength of collaboration really derives from having folks from diverse perspectives focused upon a shared goal and then working to accomplish that goal. That's what we're trying to do with the collaborative, and maybe there's some seeds of that effort in this room here. We have a diverse group of folks on our board. The hat I wear, really, on the Small Diameter Collaborative is that of a small woodland owner, family forest owner. We have some family forest land. I have a small mill. I do custom cutting for folks, they're small landowners, farmers, ranch folks. In the work that I do on my forest, I really do understand the importance of having a skilled workforce out there. Without the workers to do the work, our goals for achieving forest health will not be achieved. And that also goes for the wood products manufacturing sector. The ability to utilize the material that comes off of management and restoration without markets for that material would make it economically impossible to accomplish those goals. So that's the work we're doing. I hope it dovetails with some of your efforts here. Thanks.
Next, we're going to be outlining some priorities and the Project Rogue Valley, along with some of the key parts of the bylaws. And once again, remember, if you join tonight, or at least kind of on your promise that you are going to join, you get a chance to vote on those bylaws a little bit later in the program. What, about 8:30 or so? Yeah. Jeff? Yeah. And full copies on the membership table. There are a few on the back if you want to take a look at those. But everyone who has joined has a member and has a vote in that process. And you can go ahead and sign up at the table. I'm going to go sign up myself here. I can't vote on myself though, can I? I can? Oh, okay. Wow. I can vote for you. Really? Cool. I did. Okay. Jeff is going to be here. He's going to dazzle you with his PowerPoint presentation now. And basically outlining what's going on here with Project Rogue Valley. Jeff, go.
Thank you all for coming tonight and being so patient. We really wanted to make the point that there is so much going on right now to build a more self-reliant community. We're not announcing a new organization that's going to start this task. It's been going on for years and years and years of dedicated effort with a lot of people, and we hope through Project Rogue Valley to really add value to it. Next year, I will have been in the Valley 40 years, and the first 10 of those were in Sam's Valley and Butte Falls and around Medford. Sam's Valley, Butte Falls mostly. And living in an agricultural community and a logging community, I have always thought that there's a stronger foundation of agreement among people in this valley than it looks like, certainly than it looks like at election time, and that we get divided and get at each other's throats about, I'm not going to say unimportant things, they're not unimportant, but that there's a core that hasn't really been developed around the things that we want commonly, and that the time has really become ripe as it's become clearer and clearer that there are no rescuers coming from the outside. If we're going to have a thriving, prosperous community, it's going to have to be one that we build ourselves. And that's the basis for the coming together that we talked about. So what I'd like to do with my fancy PowerPoint demonstration is give you the basics of what we want to do in this organization. It's one thing to say, well, we really agree on more than we think that we do. And it's another thing to put that on the ground in a way that you want to be part of. I think that we may be at the start of something that has more impact than anything we've experienced here in terms of influencing the direction of the valley, the decisions that are made. We're also at the beginning of some challenges that we haven't seen before in forming this organization among people who are so different in their past experiences and some of their beliefs. I think the key to making this work is being really specific about what we're up to. Basically, when a group that had been working with me last year in the election came to Will and the other JCLAC folks, we said, look, it seems to us that there's a lot of issues that we aren't going to agree on. There's also a set of issues that we appear to agree very strongly about that are more urgent for our immediate future than the ones we've been fighting over. What are the chances of building a relationship where we can work on those together and really kind of build a movement in this valley and set aside the ones that have separated us before? Maybe we'll come back to some of those once we get some things done. And Will and the people you've heard tonight at the very beginning said, yeah, it's time for that. I'm grateful for that. It's been great working with them. So let me try to be a little more specific about what we believe in and together, what we've endorsed together, and our action plan, or rather our 4 program areas, at least for the first year. I want to show you something about that. And I want to show you kind of what I take to be kind of the highlights of the revised bylaws, because the one vote that we keep talking about tonight that we're going to ask you to do is on the revised bylaws. And they've been up on the website. We tried to get the word out kind of. But if you'd like, there are copies. There are 10 pages on the back table. I'm going to summarize what I care about if I were voting. I am going to vote tonight. But I'm going to summarize that. But first I want to tell you our principles and our program areas. Now, most of this is straight from the website, but I wanted to summarize the high points. JCLAC's Project Rogue Valley initiates and support programs that strengthen the Rogue Valley's. What's that?
They said they couldn't video.
I'd rather folks be able to read this. Yeah, that's more important than looking at me. Strengthen the Rogue Valley's self-reliance and the capacity of our communities to adapt to extraordinary social and economic challenges. To advocate policies and practices that strike the best possible balance between community self-determination and committed stewardship of our natural resources for the benefit and enjoyment of both present and future generations. To promote policies and encourage investment in an economy of locally owned businesses that generate stable, high-quality jobs, and support the viability of family-scale farming and expand the supply and distribution of healthy, locally produced food. Those are the 4 areas that we have said, here's where we agree, here's the overlap. Now let's talk a little bit about the program areas. At the outset, for 2011 anyway, there are a lot of things we could choose, but we looked at what we most strongly agree about. People have asked us, some of us have been doing radio with Bill and others over the last few days, and we've been asked some kind of hot questions that probably if we answered them fully, we demonstrate that we disagree on some things. And our feeling is that our plate is plenty full for the next year or more, probably much more, with important on-the-ground work that we do agree about. And so that's where our program areas come from. The 4 areas: local family-scale agriculture. Project Rogue Valley will work with farmers, retailers, markets, restaurants, and other organizations to advance and promote the economic viability of small-scale agriculture and the overall food security of the Rogue Valley. You've already heard from 3 or 4 tonight who've been working on that pretty hard for years. A lot of what we're saying to them is, how can we help you? What do you need? We're not setting up a new shop in competition with anybody. Early on, what we're finding is that there is a great need to develop larger markets for local farmers so people can invest in farms, to coordinate their work You know, a small farmer has trouble going to a larger market and saying, can I provide your produce? The market owner wants to know that he's got a bigger supplier who he can count on all the time. There are other areas of the country that have built associations of farmers to be of a size that can crack into some of those larger markets. Also advocacy, there was talk about Joel Salatin earlier, and the point he made about some really truly silly regulations, mostly at the federal level, that really make it hard for community agriculture to thrive and grow. We see ourselves, with the support we hope of thousands of people, as being more effective advocates with like groups around the country to change some of those laws at the state and federal level. We see ourselves filling holes that aren't getting filled right now, because a lot of the people working on these issues are farmers. They're working hard all the time. It's kind of amazing they can get anything done, so we want to put our weight behind that. That's the first area. Second, forestry and forest products. You heard from George McKinley from one of those projects recently. It seems to me one of the best kept secrets of the last few years is how much agreement has been reached around the table among people from the timber industry, environmental groups, people from the agencies, people in communities, on real forest management that improves forest health and takes logs out of the woods and provides jobs. There's some great stuff happening. Again, we're not reinventing the wheel. We are stepping up and saying, what do you need? Do you need coordination? Do you need more advocacy? What would it be like if 5,000 people who live in the Rogue Valley, who were part of Project Rogue Valley, who had different politics and different kinds of access to congressional offices, came together around your agenda for new community-based forestry? What would it mean in terms of lightening up perhaps some of the federal regulation that hasn't worked for us well? What would it mean? We haven't seen that. We want to find out. And I'll make another point as we go further. That's number two. Number three, community-based options for commerce and investment. Marilyn Miller was just talking about that with the Road Resiliency Fund. PRV is collaborating with the Road Resiliency Fund, which is developing systems for interested investors to lend to and invest in locally owned enterprises. PRV will also promote the advance of the work of the credit exchange, which Don McCoy just talked about, and time bank systems that facilitate the flow of goods and services without U.S. currency. Jackson County is not seceding from the Union and giving up U.S. dollars altogether, but I think Don made a good point about the need to get less completely reliant on that for our commerce. Other parts of the country are doing it. We can too. And there are a lot of people in this room who may not be wealthy, but have some dollars in some IRAs, 401ks, pension accounts that are in mutual funds that are doing things that aren't really supporting your interest in building a strong local community. What if those dollars instead could go to sound local businesses that create jobs? It is happening in other parts of the country, and we want to be on the forefront of that. And the fourth of the four, it has to do with local government procurement policies. Project Rogue Valley will research and develop ways to increase the percentage of tax dollars that go to local vendors when city and county governments purchase goods and services. That's a lot of dollars in our economy, and a lot of them traditionally have gone right out of this area instead of staying local to fuel local businesses. This is a complex area. You may have seen something in the newspaper about this, where a number of us have said, can at least our tax dollars stick around in the community and go around a few times before they jet off to some corporate office, please? And there was a response from the Board of Commissioners initially saying, well, we understand that sentiment, but that's not really legal to discriminate in favor of local people. Well, it turns out to be more complicated than that. I won't get into that tonight, but there is a summary of a report on the back table that we handed to the county commissioners last week. And what we're saying is, don't get us caught in stupid lawsuits and do flagrantly illegal things, but join with the growing number of communities who are finding ways, legal ways, to give a bigger portion of the government contracting pie to good local businesses and help generate things that way. I see in the audience tonight Commissioner John Rasher, and I really want to acknowledge the way John has been open to some of the new ideas that are emerging these days. Thank you, John, very much for coming. So those are the 4 areas, and one of the things we're going to ask you tonight, we have on the back table the same place that you can buy your membership in Project Road Valley, 4 sheets, one for each of the areas. And if you think you might want to do some work with us on one of those areas or have some ideas we ought to look at, please sign up with your contact information there. So now let me go. I'm not going to read 10 pages of bylaws to you, but I am going to spend about 2 or 3 minutes highlighting what seems to be the meat of it. A lot of people have asked us about governments. How do you make decisions in an organization of people who, have very different opinions? How do you keep this on track so that it is in that common ground that I'm talking about? And here's what we came up with. Here's what these are the original JCLAC bylaws that we have revised and asked for your approval tonight. Governance. Decisions are made by a steering committee of up to 12 people, and they serve 1-year terms. An individual can serve up to 5 consecutive 1-year terms. We thought this was one good measure for accountability. If this organization is going somewhere you don't want it to go and you're a member, toss them out next year. That's the reason for the 1-year terms. Steering committee members will be elected by all JCLAC members present at the organization's annual January meeting. Any member can be nominated or can nominate him or herself for election to the steering committee. Immediately after their election, members of the steering committee will elect a president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer for the committee. All steering committee meetings will be announced by email to members and will include an opportunity for members to make comments or ask questions. We want this to be not a hierarchical organization, but one that really is trying to do the will of its members. These last two, let me focus on the middle one here. We find this pretty important. Decisions of the steering committee will be on a near consensus basis, and what that means is no motion will pass if it receives more than 1 no vote. Then the feeling was if we required complete unanimous votes, we might not get much done. But if there's more than 1 no vote, it's saying, we're kind of straying from this middle ground that we all signed up to work on. What this means is, I imagine there's probably people in this room who would like to see more federal land preserved, who might even support the monument that's been talked about. I'm seeing some shaking heads back there. If that's what you want, this is not the organization where you're going to work on it. There are other organizations to work on that. There are some people in this room who would like to see the federal government completely out of the forest and see all decisions made here in Jackson County. If that's what you want, this is not the organization to work on that, and there are other organizations to work on that. So nobody's going to tell you don't be active on behalf of what you believe in, but we're really going to stay focused on the things that have brought us together, because we think that one of the reasons we're in the mess we're in this country is so many of us have said I can't work with that person. Doesn't matter on how broad our agreement is, because he's got a really stupid opinion on this issue or that issue. That's not what we're going to do, and if we go down that road, we're not going to get very far. So that's the reason for that near consensus vote. Now, to get us started, we are asking for your approval for an interim steering committee of the people who have already been working on this the last few months, putting Project Road Valley together. They are, you heard from most of them at the beginning of the meeting, Lynn Barton, Lynn Blanche, Chaz Brown, who's absent but was one of the founders of JCLAC originally, Larry Friend, you heard from, Mike Krebs, Bill Meyer, Jeff Reed, also not here tonight, Will Reichman, and Rich Whitley. So these folks have been putting it together. They are a north-south combination. I've never been called a southerner before. I have to work on my accent, I suppose. And what we're proposing to you is that these people continue from now until January. The bylaws call for a nominating process in November, and then in January of next year, 7 months away, the first full committee, our steering committee, will be elected. We felt like as we're getting started, we've got some momentum on some of these things, and you don't really know a lot of the candidates, but we really do hope that people, as they get more involved, step forward and become steering committee members next year. So those are the kind of the highlights of the bylaws, the things that struck us as kind of most important. And I'm going the wrong direction. I think, let me see if I've finished all of this. Okay, I think I had a dandy quote from Tom McCall, a good transpartisan guy. Who lived here when Tom McCall was governor? And that was till 72 or something I think. Oh, no, membership, good. I did have one. Anyone is eligible for membership. There are 3 levels. We would ask you to choose the highest one that is comfortable for you. Basic membership, we welcome at all meetings and in general discussions, receive our newsletters and announcements online. We don't want to go to the expense of a written newsletter mailed out. May run and vote for steering committee, that's $10 per year. General membership, benefits of everything you see on basic membership, plus 1 ticket to 1 paid event organized by JCLAC each year, that's $35. Sustaining membership, for those who can support JCLAC's activities at a higher dollar level of their choosing, benefits of you see above, plus 2 tickets to all paid events organized by JCLAC. That's at $100 or more. And then for those of you who'd like to associate your business with JCLAC through our website and elsewhere, we'd like to talk to you. There's some material on the back about sponsorship activities. We would like to raise some money from this organization. Basically, we have been funding this on a very lean, basically leftover budget from JCLAC from before. And we think we can spend money very cost effectively with a lot of volunteer help, but it does take a bit, and we're asking you to endorse this effort, at least for a year, to see what this is like, to see if this is all talk or if we really get some things done with your vote of support. Our feeling was that even in these economic times, that probably people who feel committed can find $10, and if we're wrong about that, let us know, we'll revisit that. But that's membership, and that's the sign-ups are available at the back of the room. Again, we're going to take a vote in a little bit. We're going to open the floor now for questions, comments, and answers. Questions and comments, anyway, maybe some answers. And then in about 20 minutes, we're going to ask you to approve the bylaws. And if you have joined already, you're eligible to vote. If you tell us you're going to join at one of those levels by the end of the week, you're eligible to vote. And to support our work, here's the things we ask you to consider. Become a member tonight at the highest level you can. Consider becoming a sponsor through your organization or business. Tell friends who might be interested about what we're doing. We've spent some time on the website to be pretty descriptive. If people email us, we'll get back to them. I know you know some friends who might be interested. Tell them we want to build this organization in a pretty robust way. Tell us how you'd like to get involved in any of our program areas. Again, there's a sign-up sheet on the back. Volunteer a few hours for clerical or organizational tasks. There's not a lot of that, but there's some. Come to steering committee meetings, give us your ideas. And consider running for the steering committee in 2012. Nominations are open in November of this year. There he is. This is what former Governor Tom McCall said. Heroes are not giant statues framed against a red sky. They are people who say, this is my community and it's my responsibility to make it better. Thank you for your patience tonight.
There's a missing element here that we just need to be discussed. One of the reasons why JCLAC didn't really blossom as well as it could have, why it didn't fulfill that early maybe promise, frankly, is that we were all volunteers. This is the only reason we're charging a membership fee or requesting for you to participate and sponsor us financially, whether it's 10 or 100 or more, is so that we can have professional, if you will, services from somebody that is extraordinarily capable. That person is Jeff. We can't ask him or anyone else to give 15 or 20 hours a week to provide the continuity that's required to really build an organization and a movement. If we'd have had that 2 years ago, we might have blossomed a little bit more than we did. And we've certainly seen the lack, or the result of that lack. So, bottom line, we're here to try to say to this friend, this brother, if you will, you know, we really appreciate the quality of your effort, and we want to enlist that. I mean, I did with the little check I wrote, and I encourage everybody to do that, so that maybe we've got a chance. Because I'll tell you one thing, the meetings that we've had since Jeff has been involved were a whole lot better than anything that I was ever involved in before. So, you know, just from the product of the last 2 or 3 months of seeing how this thing, you know, might go if we could have some continuity and some real, you know, organizational skill. We can take the energy of sort of, you know, mavericks like me and others of us, you know, that are, you know, out there, and we can pull it together, and we can begin to tie some of these threads together. But anyway, that's the bottom line. You know, we need to have a part-time at least. And Jeff's role, as we think about it, as you notice, Jeff's name was not on the steering committee candidates. And that's the reason, because he is paid. The steering committee, other bylaws is we can pay a steering committee member for a specific task, like designing a logo into it. So that's, but as an ongoing, quote, you know, paid person, Jeff's not on the steering committee, doesn't vote. That had to be clarified, and that's the biggest reason why there is a membership fee. We could run an event and charge a fee and get, you know, $1,000. We made $3,000 or $4,000 from the South an event, which has sustained us to this day with little teeny expenses along the way.
So Jeff, you want to take some questions, or anybody want to ask some questions? Go ahead and raise your hand if you have any questions. I'll come over and put a microphone on you so we can all hear you. Hi there.
Hi. First of all, I really appreciate what you guys are doing. I think it's really important that we think about what we all have in common rather than what we disagree on. So I'm really supportive of that. I just have kind of an organizational question. I don't understand exactly what the relationship is between JCLAC and Project Rogue Valley, so how they organizationally fit together. And also, is JCLAC a 501c3 organization, and how does that work?
Project Rogue Valley, it's really, frankly, it's a product. It's a marketing theme, if you want to call it. Since the organization has been around for a while, and this is sort of JCLAC 2.0, if you want to put it that way, it seemed like it might be best represented in this regard. And it also defines this limited agenda that Jeff outlined of 4 specific items. There's other things that we could, but instead of getting lost in all the other potential and compelling projects, we figured we'd limit the agenda, we'd call it this, and Jeff is the program director or program manager. It's not a 501c3, it's not a nonprofit. It's just complicated. We've thought about that, we weighed it back and forth, and it's best just to be a simple, we're legally organized as simply an educational incorporation of the state of Oregon laws, but it's not a nonprofit.
And a lot of the reasons, there are a lot of restrictions on 501c3s too. Okay, any other questions? Hey Lynn, fire away.
How about using Jefferson rounds?
I've seen them once, but tell me just a little bit about, are they around? Are they around?
They are round.
They're
and
round.
silver. And they are, so they would actually have a value. There's the silver value associated with it.
Well, we could go down that rabbit trail, but the one thing that is clear, the people that have put together the trade exchange have given this a great deal of fairly deep thought. And it is a credit system in contrast to a banking system. Banking systems, if you will, save money or preserve wealth. trade exchanges or mediums of exchange facilitate transactions. And this is an exclusive process to facilitate transactions, to enlarge them, whereas there's more than one function of money, and something that has intrinsic value might better serve other purposes, not just facilitating exchange. They're not exclusive, they're complementary, and in time, there's no question that the concept, the theory behind the trade exchange could incorporate a convertibility to something other than a US dollar, maybe both. We have to be careful of the laws and the Federal Reserve's jealousy about its province. But it's possible, and Mr. Thomas Greco, and there's a tape from him back there that you'll find if you want to take a video. And he does incorporate the possibility of some tie to an intrinsic or inherent value preservation of wealth medium. But this is exclusively to facilitate transactions. Keep it here instead of having it go through the credit card system at Chase, for God's sake.
Mike, you had a question? Yes, I did for Will or Jeff. I noticed the phrase family agriculture, family scale agriculture. I was wondering if we have a definition for that within this group.
Would you draft one for us, Glenn?
Well, the whole nation's kind of working on that term, and so it really caught my attention because, you know, we have a lot of different sizes of agriculture here. So I was wondering if the steering committee had thought about that.
Well, I think, as you pointed out, you know, what we're experiencing, what we see is a lot of families, smaller holdings. We're trying to get some traction. Would love to make their farming economically viable. We're for agriculture here. We're for locally owned agriculture. And there's some agriculture, as you know, that makes more sense on a larger scale than a smaller scale. We're for a diverse agriculture. We like to do a better job. You know, the figure that gets thrown around a lot is that 1 to 3% of the food we eat here is produced locally. 1 to 3%. 3 is probably high. That seems kind of silly for a place like the Rogue Valley. So there's a lot of pieces to this. Some that have nothing to do with programs, some that have to do with people's individual tastes. There's all kinds of things. Do we need bananas in January? You know, you name it. But there is so much work that can be done to bring that up. And there's a, you know, just to spend 30 seconds on it, there are a lot of smaller enterprises that would love to process food if they had access to a commercially graded kitchen. And what if there were more collective activities to make that possible in kind of a Grange format where people had access to it. And there are people who in this room have been working on these ideas for a long time. The idea of a slaughterhouse here, locally, a licensed certified slaughterhouse, so stockmen aren't taking their stock all over the West Coast to end up back at Sherm's here, is another idea. So you've caught us. The scale doesn't matter. Locally owned matters, and cooperative with others in the valley matters to us. And when you get that definition of family scale drafted, please let us have it.
All right, twist my arm, Jeff. I'll work on it.
Yeah, I know Glenn's going to work on it. Anybody else have a question? Back here, Don.
Jeff, could you emphasize one more time what you do agree on with Will Reichman? Just, you know, kind of like, we understand food, we got that down. Does it go beyond that? I know we have to eat first before we do anything else, but what happens after that?
The umbrella is a stronger, more self-reliant community, and we have defined it with 4 kind of pillars or posts or something or other. And food, I think, has a distinction. You know, most of the brief speakers you heard tonight are working in food in one way or another. The idea of community self-reliance in food is more advanced than in other areas. We really want to support what you're doing, Don, in the credit exchange. We really want to support other, you know, one of the 4 was the whole area of commerce and finance and trade. And timber is another. You know, the timber industry came to a crashing halt 20 years ago, and we now have figured out some people really dedicated to the woods, dedicated to timber jobs, been talking and figured out some really good alternatives. We want to get behind that. And the 4th, again, is we believe together that our tax dollars. We'd like all of us to develop a stronger habit of shopping locally. We know there are obstacles to that. But we really would like our tax dollars to shop locally. And we want our county and cities to join the forefront of a couple, 3, 4 dozen jurisdictions around the country who are finding ways to do that.
Yes, I would like to first say that the director of this facility did not mention that also what occurs here is that the Master Gardening Program occurs. And 1 in 100 people in this valley are certified Master Gardeners. So that's a lot, and it has a huge impact.
Wow.
Yes, it's been going on for how many years? 20. Pardon me? Well, my number's wrong then. It's probably 2 out of 100. So it's a very important program, and I had the pleasure of participating. My question is this, and Will, you made reference to it in terms of JCLAC, organizationally, how do you make things happen? And I see that we now have this Rogue Valley plan, which has 4 programs. My question is this, and you can have a steering committee of 12 people that can come up with great ideas, but how do you get it into action? And it would seem to me that each one of those projects would be, you would have a committee, whatever, meet like this, and you bring in the community like this, and you have discussions, and out of that discussion and interaction, we make connections throughout the community, and we come up with ideas of creating an action plan that then certain people, be it on the steering committee or in the community, get involved in a committee or an action group, if you will, and then to make it happen, to define things. So instead of just, it's great to have programs and great to have the speaker come in, but if we really want to be effective, we have to figure out how we do it organizationally, how we create these ideas into action. And so I just wanted to mention, is this something you thought about or going to do? Thank you.
Yeah, let's get something done. I couldn't agree more. And I'm going to re-up. I told all the people when we started in July of 2009 that I was committed for 18 months. That time has expired. But because of the involvement of other people, and I think the importance of what we're doing, and all I can say is we're going to give it our best shot. Frankly, the last 3 months, we've been simply sort of doing this sort of a waltz, and then it sort of became a little bit more of a in tandem rhythm, and then we said, okay, we're launching, we're going to go, and we've been focusing on this event and other things necessary to pull off. But we're certainly not here to waste our time. Jeff, we all have very busy lives, and we're going to give it our best shot. Join, sign up, George, be a member, and participate in executing. I want to, if I could, pick up on something that Don said. I want to suggest how creative I think we need to be a little bit in breaking some of the mold, some of the concrete, some of the paradigms. And this is where Jeff and I probably agree a lot more than I would have thought 5 years ago. And it's an example of how food security perhaps can be enhanced. We've got hundreds of acres of orchards that our major corporations contend are underutilized or marginal land, and yet they're committed to orchards. Now, a person typically from the right, the conservative side, would say, I believe in property rights, they can do what they want to with that property. That's to me, a very powerful argument just on the face of it. Pretty much a libertarian leaning person. But I do think communities can come together and recognize that there is extraordinary circumstances that prevail, and that some of this land lies in some of the remaining very valuable quasi-bottom land that we have in the Rogue Valley. And I would contend that we as a community, I don't want it to come from Salem. Some people might wish it would come from Salem if it wouldn't come from anywhere else. But I would insist that it should come from us as a community. We can, and this is what I hope we can catalyze, is the will of the people of Jackson County to somehow encourage that these orchard lands, in other words, because the companies, and they've already made this quite clear in the newspaper, through the legislation they tried to get introduced into the House, the State House, this last term, and it was just needed work. We were told it needed work, so it'll be introduced in the next session. They wanted to be rezoned for development because that would allow them to get higher value, and they could use that to borrow more money, which is questionable on its face, but that's another story because it's a legitimate business strategy. I will concede that. I would suggest that we have the right as a community, but within Jackson County that is, to advocate that there's a third way here and that we should work very hard to preserve that as agricultural. And so we want to try to be a catalyst here to come up with at least some kind of model for at least one of these parcels involving the people from this organization, for one, OSU Extension, and others to try to develop a third way to preserve this as agricultural land. No, it can't be developed, I'm sorry. It's too valuable. We can't lose it. We've lost too much great land already. But I don't want that to come from the outside as a decision made by some LCDC bureaucrat somewhere else. If that happens to me, it's not legitimate, and I don't accept that verdict. But I think so I don't want to go too long, but that's the kind of thing, Don, where I think Jeff and I can find a working agreement that does break some of the, the paradigms of the past and create, potentially catalyze, important new economic enterprises.
Let me just add a couple things. I really like your committee idea, your subgroup idea, because this has to be a participating organization. And we could talk later about how specifically we've got into action steps already. We've got a ways to go. But I'm really hoping people who are attracted to one of the four in particular would put their name on the list back there. That would be the start of the committee. The food thing especially, we are really not wanting to duplicate efforts, and a whole lot's going on. We're trying to find our way through that. But one thing that's real clear, there are, I think, 3 pieces of legislation in Salem right now that Joel Salatin would love that change regulation to make community commerce and agriculture more easier, more sensible. For just one example, one of them would give an exemption. Right now, if you slaughter birds, fowl, poultry, you can't really sell it to your neighbor legally. And one of the bills in the legislature, which has been adopted in other states, would give a 1,000 bird exemption. You could do that up to 1,000 birds a year. There's a little bit more to it than that. Those bills have sort of been marching along, but it appears, I'm not current, but as of last week, pardon me? Oh, we did. There we go. Very good. But as these come forward, how great would it be for 3,000 JCLAC members in Jackson County who vote differently and support different legislators to be calling Salem in support of bills like that? That's one example.
Okay, next question.
Okay. Thank you. I guess this question is for both you gentlemen. Are you working with, I met Jan Ballard some time back, Jan Ballard. He's working on a Go Local campaign with Valley, the Business Alliance for Local Living Economy. I just want to show this incredible vortex of smart people in Sonoma County that are having uprisings like you are here. I just want to make sure you get in touch with Jan Ballard and his organization. Right on. He is no member of Valley? Oh, okay, right on. So this is just material that I don't know if we're duplicating or not, but I hope that you'll...
Well, you bring up a really important point. I would like us to steal the best ideas we can find from all over the country. We are not the first. We're not the first room full of people having this conversation in this country. We got a grim national and global situation, and people all over are doing it. So one of the things we're going to find through the help like you is best practices. And BALI, right? BALI stands for the Business Alliance for Local Living Economies. It's a national organization with affiliates all over the country, and Thrive, Wendy Saporn leads, is the Rogue Valley chapter of that.
Well, I love everything that you guys are talking about, and I'm really supportive perspective of it, I'm just a little bit confused. Are you trying to position yourselves as like a chamber of commerce or a rotary? Like, what's the closest thing that a layperson could kind of like wrap their head around what you're trying to do? Not to oversimplify it, but
For community organizers.
Just wondering if like grassroots revolution.
partisan tea party, like what are you going for? I just
You're
want
not
to.
comprehensive, right? You're not comprehensive for the whole Road Valley, right? You're only dealing with the things you choose to work with.
We'd like everybody who supports this agenda to join, but we're certainly not comprehensive on issues. There are some very important issues that we're not going to be dealing with. And as I say, our plate's full with the ones we agree on. I don't know what comes to me is some historical things like the Grange movement in North Dakota, who said, at another very tough time in our history, said we got to get more self-reliant here, and had a huge impact on politics in the Midwest, which is one of the reasons North Dakota has the only state bank in the country. But I'll think more about your question.
I have a question. Tonight has been so valuable in order to see people from all different organizations and get little bits of what they're doing and beginning to see how there might be connections among them. Whether JCLAC and the Project Road Valley have considered using your online presence as one way of highlighting all these different organizations and maybe getting them in connection more with one another, or it would draw people, it would help support those organizations and also support JCLAC. And I can see coming out of that and what I think George said. Mark? Oh, okay, thank you. Mark said, Mark in the Chartreuse, yes. I can see what happened here tonight could happen maybe around certain issues. If you thought about this, of bringing, because you're in touch with a whole variety of groups, and bringing certain of them together. You aren't going to duplicate what they're doing, but maybe you could be the common meeting place where various organizations or even non-organizational project endeavors come together.
I think that's exactly right, and we would like to have a really good web presence bringing folks together. There's some of that already.